Patch 13.1b is about to hit the Rift. So guys, who are going to be the most broken champions? Who are going to be the worst champions? Who's going to be in Yumi tier? Who's going to be in broken tier? And everything in between. Well, in today's video, the GameLeap tier list, we're going to tell you, who these champions are going to be, who the best are going to be, who the worst are going to be. So if you want to kind of tailor your champion pools towards what's going to be broken in 13.1b for the next couple of weeks when the patch drops, this is just an ideal video for you. We're going to talk you through why some of these picks are going to be broken, what some of the changes might mean as well for some champions, especially if they've gotten a lot better or a lot worse. So make sure you stick around for the whole video. And of course, guys, if you want to improve at League of Legends as much as possible, then we have all the learning resources you need on our website at GameLeap.com, because we will help you achieve your dreams. Like legit, if you want to get to a certain rank this season, if you want to master a champion, whatever it is, we have all the videos, we have all the content for you on our website. So to get exclusive access to that, all you have to do is sign up. So click on one of those links down below. And yeah, let's get into the 13.1b tier list. So yes, top laners. Let's start by talking about the two most broken champions. These are going to be Jax and Jace. Now in the top lane, lots of changes are coming in, right, to bruiser items. So whether it's their stance, Black Cleaver, we've been through a lot of these before, but for Jax and Jace, not much is really changing. Jax, if you are going Blade of the Rune King, some stuff, well, you're going to be a little bit worse off because the item is getting nerfed in terms of the magic damage, and the cooldown is going up 10 seconds. So this is a second item spike, might not be as good as it was before, but here's the thing. Jax is one of those champions who doesn't have like too much healing innately, right? Lots of champions in the top lane have so much healing, whether it's from their actual kit, runes, or whatever. As Jax, you might go Grasp into some matchups, I get that. But generally speaking, you're going to be unaffected by the Grievous Wounds changes coming into 13.1b, where they're going to be 40% effective if you're just buying Bramble Vest or Executioner's Cooling, right? These are really going to cuck a lot of top lane champions, and Jax, because you are so broken anyway, is going to be untouched. This is why he's in broken, exactly the same with Jace, right? You're not going to be affected by any sort of Grievous Wounds buffs or nerfs, so this is great, and it also opens up opportunities for you to build these items into healing champions. Jace as well, because of the buffs last patch, he's become extremely broken during the laning phase. If any of you have actually laned against a Jace, you know what I'm talking about. But also we can talk about Eclipse getting, well, honestly, I just think it's buffed for Jace because Omnivamp you don't really care about, and you're getting ability haze from the item now as well. Ability haze for Jace is nice because again, it just means more cooldowns, more abilities, and that's what your champion is really about. So Jace and Jax, the two most broken. And you guys might be like watching this, well, what's happened to Darius then? Why is he fallen off from broken tier? Well, he's moved to S tier, so he's still going to be extremely strong, but again, it's just the fact that Bramble Vest, Executioner's Cooling, these are 40% effective now in terms of mitigating the healing the enemy champion's actually going to be healing for. So Darius with your Q, this is really going to affect you during those trades, so that's why I think Darius will fall off just a little bit, but still very good. And this is also why, guys, these tanks have actually moved up a lot as well. So if we think of Ornn with Jack Show, right, but also Bramble Vest, Shen, Bramble Vest, Sion, Zac, Bramble Vest, all of these champions are going to froth this, and a lot of bruisers who can build Executioner's Cooling, they're generally high up in the tier list as well, but if they do have innate healing, like if we look down at C tier for a second, we have Silas who's here, right, because of his healing. We also have Renekton. He's not really going to appreciate the Bramble Vest and Executioner's Cooling buffs. Vladimir exactly the same. Trundle might be another one. Warwick has also dropped a lot, so from S tier all the way down to B tier, because these champions rely so much on healing, right? Aurelia might be the same thing from A tier to B tier, so that's really going to be the theme for 13.1b, and it probably will define the actual top lane meta just based on who heals and who does not. And really the only champion in the top lane this patch who got hit directly, this is Gangplank. So for GP, your AD growth is going down. This is going to affect your mid to late game scaling. And also the actual bonus damage based on critical strikes from your powder keg is getting halved. So from 10% all the way down to 5%. Again, this just means that, well, because Infinity Edge is now going to spike on 40% crit, or even Navori as well, right? Both of them are going to spike off 40%. This means for GP, if you're going Essence Reaver into one of these items, well, it's going to be a very scary 2-item spike. So Rada kind of just like, preemptively nerfing GP, but also Essence Reaver is actually getting a buff. So you're getting 10 more AD from the item, and it's only costing 100 gold more. So for GP, I honestly think just the build will be Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge, and you will be one-shotting people still. Even with these nerfs, I don't think it's going to affect him too much, which is why he's low-key broken. Now, alongside him, we have a bunch of champions, and again, we will mention these guys in a future video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. Now let's head to the mid lane tier list. So you can see in broken, we still have Kassadin, and we also have Vex carrying over from last patch. Kassadin, even though he's getting nerfed, so the E cooldown is going up, I don't really think it's going to change too much. Again, Rod of Age is getting buffed, Sarah's getting buffed. Kassadin with an Emax is still going to be innately stronger. Remember, when those enemy champions use their abilities, they reduce your Force Pulse's cooldown by a second anyway. It will still be low enough to get off multiple in team fights, and because the early laning phase is more secure these days, you guys have seen him picked in pro play as well, that's when you know this champion is giga busted, and the nerfs are not enough to remove him from his perch. Now, also we have Vex here. Again, Vex doesn't really need to worry about anything. happening here. There's no real changes that are affecting her, so she's still going to be very strong. The other champion I've included here in Broken is Tristana, and you might be like, why on earth would I include Tristana in a mid lane tier list? Well, that's really because of what I was talking about before with GP, right? Because Infinity Edge has a 40% spike now, right? So second major item, when you get it, it spikes. The passive actually procs. This is amazing for Tristana because you have an attack speed steroid in your Q, right? So when you jump in, pop your Q, you auto attack like crazy, and with the extra damage from Infinity Edge, you are going to one-shot people more than you were before. I think it's going to be a really scary pick, especially in pro play, in the mid lane, in the bot lane, wherever you play her. So that's why she's here. She also counters so many mid laners, mages, even close range champions, right, really struggle with her because she's so oppressive. So Tristana isn't broken. Now, apart from these champions, who else do we have to talk about? Well, one of the big talking points in this patch is Orianna, who's getting some really big buffs, right? So the fact that your Q is going to deal 70% damage to those targets hit after the first target, this means that in terms of poking the enemy champion and your general wave clear, it's going to be improved. Also, your W's dissonance, the actual mana cost, is going down at later ranks, and your shockwave is going to be dealing an extra 50 damage at rank 1, 75 at rank 2, and 100 at rank 3. Also, the AP ratio is going up by 10%, so this means once you start getting AP from items, you are going to be shockwaving teams to death. I think she's going to be a very powerful champion. That's why she's in low-key broken. And she's not in S tier or broken because, yeah, I just don't think enough people play her. But 13.1B, I think they definitely will. Now, Ryze is another mid laner getting changed, but this guy's getting nerfed. So what's happening with Ryze is that Ryder making him red. I'm joking, he's still going to be blue. But yes, your base magic resistance is going down, right? Because in the mid lane, you're playing against mages a lot. Ryze is pretty much unkillable, especially when you get Mercury Treads, which honestly happens most of the time, right? So Merc Treads make you unkillable, bringing this magic resistance down in the base stat, it seems legit. Now also, your passive, the increased maximum mana per 100 AP you get is going down to 6%. This is almost cut in half. This means that Ryze will just be less of a mid to late game force. But honestly speaking, I don't think these nerfs are going to be big enough, especially in pro play, to actually like take him out of the meta. So that's why Ryze is in S tier. Now, another champion to talk about, we have Zoe. And what's big for Zoe this patch is that your E is now going to reduce the opponent's magic resist when asleep. This means that when you land your sleepy bubble trouble, that opponent who is asleep is going to be more one-shottable, which is what you're about. I think this is a massive change. Like legit, if you can play Zoe well and you can time your Q onto your bubble, this is just going to win you lanes more than ever before, especially when the mid to late game opens up and you land that E, you will one-shot anyone. That's why she's moving up all the way to S tier. Now, apart from this, what items do we have to consider that are getting changed? Well, again, Oblivion Orb is getting buffed, so if you're playing like a Sylas, if you're playing a Vladimir, someone with some sort of innate healing in the mid lane, you're going to be worse off. This is why Sylas has dropped a tier. Vladimir is still in B tier. I still think you can make him work, but again, the early laning phase, if the enemy champion builds these items, that is, it's going to be harder, right, to get out of. So that was the mid lane tier list, guys, for 13.1B, and again, yes, the low-key broken champions. I will expound on these in a future video. Now, moving on to the jungle. So the jungle in 13.1B, honestly, like, not much is changing, because really this patch is about top laners in terms of the Grievous Wounds, and then bot lane in terms of the actual Infinity Edge, Navori Quick Blade Spike, which is just earlier, right? So in the jungle, if you're not really one of these champions, then not much is going to happen for you. Now, Kindred is probably the big talking point, right? So just before we get into her actually broken tier, Evelynn, Echo, Master Yi, Zac. I think Master Yi might be interesting with Infinity Edge Spike, Navori Quick Blades. These are just expedited now, so we'll have to keep an eye on the Wuju Bladesman, but yeah, I just think he's going to be broken anyway. We have Zac here as well, Radiant Virtue, Echo, Evelynn, Self-Explanatory, right? We all know why these champions are broken because of the buffs. Towards the end of Season 12 or in the last few patches, they've really benefited these champions and maybe the full clear meta. But yes, as far as Kindred goes, right, have actually nerfed your Q's base damage. This means in the early game, you're less of a snowballing champion, because if you do get going in the early game, you get a kill, get a couple of marks, it's very difficult to stop you. So this just brings our power down a little bit, because Riot again are just scared of Kindreds going like Kraken Slayer into Infinity Edge and one-shotting everyone. Honestly, you probably still can do it, because the actual damage based on crit, like nothing is really changing for you in terms of yourself. So Kindred, I still think it's going to be very powerful, so watch out for her in 13.1B. Now, other champions getting affected in this patch, we have Udit. So Riot actually nerfing the Q's damage in terms of the physical damage, and also nerfing your Phoenix Lance's damage as well. This affects your clear, this affects your dueling potential, of course the actual damage output you have, taking dragons and all this stuff. So Udit will be worse off. Also, Demonic Embrace is getting nerfed for melee champions, which is kind of big for Udit because that's your first major item, and this affects everyone else, of course, who builds it. So if we're talking Lilia, if we're talking Maokai, that's why the tree has dropped all the way down to B tier, and he's getting nerfed as well. We'll get into those very soon. We also have Zac maybe, but on Zac, you can just rush Radiant Virtue. That's really all you need. So yes, all of these add up for Udit. But one good thing for Udit is that you're going to have extra attack speed from your Q. So Riot are trying to encourage you again to build like Conqueror or maybe Lethal Tempo Udit with some attack speed. So I think this is actually just a healthy change, and I still think this champion will be really good if you decide to build him AP or if you decide to build him AD. And speaking of Maokai, guys, the nerfs to Maokai, so the actual bonus damage to monsters, this is decreasing. So they buffed this a few patches ago, and that's what made Maokai kind of just like really broken, because your clear speed through the jungle was kind of insane. They're nerfing this now, so you're going to be slower. Also, your E's magic damage is decreasing in terms of the actual standard sapling toss. This is scaling less off AP, and also your bonus HP, and the empowered sapling damage, well, this is staying the same, but again, it's scaling less off your bonus health, and the actual AP ratio is getting nerfed too. So Maokai obviously won't appreciate these changes, especially Demonic Embrace, which is getting nerfed, right? That's why he is dropping down to B tier. Now, alongside him in B tier, we can see Lilia, right? So Demonic Embrace getting nerfed is going to affect Lilia, but what's happening for Lilia is that, well, I'm not going to go through all these changes, but pretty much the gist of this is that you are getting buffed in the mid to late game. Pretty much like your AP ratios are just getting increased in every single ability, which is huge, right? Because this means if you can actually get to that point, you're going to be sweet. But I don't actually know if like that's a big kind of reason why Lilia sucks right now. It's probably just because you can't actually like compete with other junglers in the early game. So I think like maybe some early game buffs to actually get you to the mid to late game would have been more appreciated, and that's why Lilia is only in B tier. But yes, Lilia mains, let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you guys are really looking at this tier list, you will notice that Ivern is the only champion in Loki broken. Again, I will explain and elaborate on this in a future video. Now guys, let's move down to the bot lane. Here it is, the big talking point of 13.1b. So like I said, right, kind of for other champions in this tier list video, so Infinity Edge, the actual passive, is now going to proc a 40% crit. That means that you're going to be building, for most champions anyway, Gale Force, Kraken Slayer, Shield Bow, then into Infinity Edge is your second major item. That's really important. Now, you will notice here that in Broken, we have Draven and we have Tristana. Tristana, I've already talked about, right? But for Draven, you might be like, well, Draven can maybe go Kraken Slayer. You could even go Shield Bow if you wanted to for sure. Or what you can do is new Essence Reaver. So it won't even be like a mythic Draven until like third item, right? What you're probably going to be doing is building Essence Reaver and then getting Infinity Edge. Because Essence Reaver is more damage, right? You're getting 10 extra AD. This is huge for Draven because AD is such an important stat. And then with Infinity Edge, you are going to deal the most damage like possible. Also, remember, you have an attack speed steroid in your W, exactly like how Tristana has one in our Q. So these two champions are going to be the best. If you don't have them in your champion pool, please learn them. Again, check out our website for all the courses and videos you need. Now, moving down to S tier, Caitlyn, Kai'Sa, Nyla, Samira, Twitch. Most of these are going to be like kind of obvious because yes, they will build Infinity Edge second, right, after their mythic item. But for some champions, maybe like Twitch, who might want to go Blade the Rune King, well, the actual damage is getting buffed by 1% for ranged champions. This might be nice, but also for Twitch, you can still go Kraken Slayer into Infinity Edge, no worries. Also remember that it was Twitch coming out of your ambush, your Q, you get attack speed, right? So again, if you have an attack speed steroid, gonna be big. Kind of the same for Varus. If you're going on here, Varus, Shield Bow into Infinity Edge. I mean, it doesn't actually sound too red hot for Varus, but what I think is gonna be good for Varus isn't actually going any of these builds, it's going lethality still, because Eclipse is now giving you ability haste. This is going to be big for this guy, so watch out for that this patch. Now, as far as underrated champions go, we have Ezreal and Miss Fortune. I will really elaborate on these in other videos, but Ezreal is here because Essence Reaver into Navori Quick Blades. That I think is going to be the build, and it sounds really fun, and honestly might even be broken. Miss Fortune is here because you have an attack speed steroid in your W, so I think if you go something like Kraken Slayer into Infinity Edge, your auto attacks with, of course, your W, and also your ultimate because it deals damage based on crit, it's going to be crazy. Now, for the rest of the tier list, if we just look at C tier for a second, we have Kalista and we have Sivir. Now, Kalista, I don't think is actually going to appreciate any of these changes that much, especially compared to every other AD carry. She's going to be pretty upset, so that's why she's in C tier. And Sivir is in C tier, even though, of course, you can go like Kraken Slayer into Infinity Edge or Gale Force into Infinity Edge, whatever it is you're building, but I just don't think she's innately strong enough to compete with everyone else who is getting buffed as well. So that's why she's in C tier. Now, moving on to the supports, guys, for this patch, and if you do enjoy these tier list videos, make sure you let us know by leaving a like down below. And as far as Broken goes, we have Blitzcrank. Now, Blitzcrank does pretty much, well, amazingly well in every single elo, and because Enchantress are really popular, hook one of them into you and your AD carry or your team in the mid to late game, they're dead. Now, also, we have Janna, Karma, and Lulu. Look at these three champions for me. What do they all share in common? They have shields, right? They don't actually have, like, innate healing in their kit. Okay, Janna has her ultimate, I get it. But basic ability-wise, they don't have healing, right? Healing, remember, is getting nerfed in this patch. So if you are a champion like Nami, she's dropped from Broken to S tier. If you're a champion like Sona, Soraka, the same thing, from S tier to A tier. They are just easier to cuck this patch. That's why they have fallen off. And for these champions as well, if we think about Putrefier, this item is actually decreasing in gold by 200, which is obviously good for supports because you are kind of, well, gold starved compared to other roles, that is. And it's also increasing your healing and shielding strength, the item as well. So again, if you are playing one of these shielders, Putrefier just looks really, really juicy. So that's why Janna, Karma, Lulu are in Broken. S tier, Amumu, Bard, Nami. Nami is actually getting nerfed. So as far as your W goes, as far as your E goes, this is going to affect her Synergy, Lucian, and other strong AD carries, but I still think she'll be extremely extremely good. That's why she's S tier. Renata is here because, again, she is one of those champions not relying on healing. Xerath is here because with the new Morellonomicon, you getting magic penetration. I think it's going to be really useful. And also applying the Grievous wounds. While you have AoE in your kit, it should be doable. Zyra, exactly the same reason, right? Now, underrated, we have Ashe. Pretty much because you can get an Executioner's Calling early on in a game and just completely cuck anyone with healing. Your W is unreal for this because it's AoE, right? You landed on multiple enemy champions in those team fights is GG. Apart from this, guys, the tier list really hasn't changed that much. Heimerdinger has moved down because of the nerfs to the actual health of your turret and the damage you're dealing with your W. These have been nerfed, so he's dropped a tier, but will still be viable, I think. I don't think these are significant nerfs, and that's about it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, once again, please leave a like down below, and any thoughts on the tier list, on the champions, on the changes, leave them in the comment section. And until our next season 13 upload, this has been Peace.